Hey,
There you
the
go.
button says that we're live. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to 2A Tuesday. It's Tuesday night. What is today? May 14th, 2019. And we are working our way through the Bill of Rights. We've done two different chats now. It took a whole night to do the First Amendment. It took a whole night to do the Second Amendment, which we just kind of assumed it would. So I didn't plan on going any farther than that night. And now we are up to the Third Amendment. We're going to see it. I don't think that one's going to take a whole lot of time to discuss. So we'll go through and see if we can do at least 3, 4, and 5 tonight. And see how far we can get in the time allowed. We're not going to go super late tonight just because my beautiful co-host, who is just off the camera, is back to work now. And this is her first week back in the workforce after being sick and doing treatments, and now she's back at it. So that means that she's going to go to bed kind of early, and I probably will too. So we'll cut it shorter tonight than usual. But at the same time, we're not gonna shortchange any of these amendments. So we will see where we get to. Who do we have joining us over on the Gun Channel side? It looks like Gary is here, and I am here. Is that it? Let me refresh this and see what is going on the Gun Channel side. Over on YouTube, while that's refreshing, we have got my favorite co-host, my favorite human, and my beautiful wife, Sandhills sweetheart. She's going to make sure that nothing bad happens in the chat like she normally does. Plus, she's the one that gets to tell everybody hi when I miss you as I'm talking and I don't see everybody come in. Gun Loving Grandpa is in the house. We've got Seven Wonders, Guitar Man Pete, Rich Parth, Blitz is here, Keith Gregory is here, and it looks like maybe that is it for now. If you are watching us on YouTube and you're not making comments, then hit that live chat button and go ahead and say hi so we know you're here, because we like to know who it is that is that's watching us. And then over on Gun Channels, we've got Gary, we've got Rupan in here now too. So welcome everybody on the Gun Channel side. And if you have not yet subscribed to Gun Channels, then you really should be doing that. It's free. And the best part about Gun Channels is whatever you're into, there's somebody else that likes the same things that you do. And so there's usually a 24-hour lobby chat going over there and some links to some other cool stuff like the 24-hour gun show and some stuff like that. So go to gunchannels.com, go sign up, become a member, and you can find most of the usual suspects that you see week in and week out on all of our live chats. We all get together over on Gun Channels too. You can find us right over at Sandhills Shooter there, the same as you can on YouTube or on Facebook. So who do we have in our panel today? We have got, we'll just start from one end over here on my screen and go the other direction. Travis keeps making noise.
So, I'm playing with a rifle. I'm sorry.
What rifle? What are you playing with?
Oh, I did a couple modifications to the Bear Creek AR tonight. I just put the Magpul trigger guard on for fun, and then I got a company that in a tack pack sent me their version of the bad lever that Magpul makes. It's to cool. Release the bolt. So I forgot to mute up, but I don't know. It's cool. I mean, it's all metal and stuff. It might make things a little bit easier for charging the next round, but I'm just playing around with it. I took the 224 Valkyrie upper off and put this one back on because I'm going to be ordering a new optic for that one. So that's kind of what I'm playing around with right now. So until I get the new optic, that's not going to be heading out to the range. So
awesome. Well, and yeah, dude, check out that cool shirt Travis has on tonight. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Barry Allen called. He's jealous.
As quick as I need to. Yeah.
Barry Allen wants his shirt back. So, all right. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself and your channel while we have
Camera's
you on.
So.
Either way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, check out my channel, Travis P11 on YouTube, and I'm also on gunchannels.com. Everybody else should be over there. Channel's called Caliber Corner. We got a podcast we do Thursday nights from 5 to 7 Central, 6 to 8 East Coast time. And this Thursday, we're going to have a 1911 buyer's guide because I'm having a midlife firearm crisis where I want a 1911 and I don't know why. And I have some ideas about what I want, so I'll be taking some suggestions from the audience. And then I've got a little surprise to show everybody during the show. So should be good. Anyway, man, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
No
you don't need to know why you want a 1911. You don't need a reason to want a 1911. That's
never
American history right there.
I know, it's weird. It's like I look at it, it looks like a finely crafted piece of American machinery, and I gotta have one. So,
and when you pick one up, I mean, you know
Yeah.
that a decent one anyway.
Yeah.
And doesn't matter if you like, Kimber or Colt, whoever it is. If you pick up a well-made 1911, you just know that you're holding something quality in your hand, and that's just cool.
Problem with it is that when you search for one, like I did a search on one of the websites, there was 1,500 of them for sale.
Yeah.
Price is starting at $366 up to $3,666. I mean, I got an idea what I want, but I need you guys to either talk me into it or talk me out of it. So, got a couple
Now,
right now.
makes sense.
Wait, how many 1911s have you shot before? How many different kinds?
3, 4, 4.
You could,
four brands,
kinda...
four different brands of different price points. So
okay.
I mean, I've got a little bit of everything covered right now. So yeah, the Taurus, I took a Taurus out. I took a Rock Island. I fired an ATI, and then Stan's has a Springfield 45, which I wouldn't buy one new, but I'd buy one used. We've already discussed that before. It's a really nice 45, but I got kind of a nice one I want to show off during the show. So yeah.
But it kind of leads you to wonder about Colt or Kimber or Para or Remington or Auto Ordnance and the list just goes on, right?
I got to play around
10 millimeter, 9 millimeter.
Yeah. Those are the kind of things we'll talk about, is what caliber would be best to go with, and start with the basics and work our way up the ladder. So should be a good show.
Should be a good show.
All right, man. Thank you.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, Squib, while you've got a second, let's let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Third shift guy disappeared, so I don't know. Travis just said 1911, and I forgot that was a subject. I'm really kind of looking forward to the show, because once you get that 1911, you'd be willing to sell one of your Glocks or something to get one of those, I bet.
Well, I wouldn't, because I only have one, and I've
only got one also.
I'm not a big fan
of
at this point in my collecting. I'm not looking at selling one to get a different one. I just want to get the different one. And when I have so many that I can unload one to get another, then I'm going to say, all right, well, my collection's finally taken off and getting going here.
Good point. So,
but for now, no, I'm not going to sell my Glock to get a 1911. I just want to get a 1911 one day. But it's not that high on the priority list yet at our house. So, but yeah, heck yeah. All right, so we will let you be and finish working until another 20 or 30 minutes goes by, and then we'll bug you some more, Squib. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Obnoxious One is here. What's up from the East Coast?
Yo, I just want to go on record as that selling a firearm is a terrible idea.
Friends don't let friends sell firearms.
Right.
Unless you're a retailer or a dealer, in which case, have at it.
Yeah, then have at it.
But,
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was on record against the selling of firearms. Uh-oh.
To list the channels in
I totally didn't do that.
That was B11.
Uh-oh, am I in trouble? I heard my name in the background.
Oh, yeah, she said your name.
Look, I served my time after school. Don't come at me.
I totally did not do whatever she's saying I did.
No, but we're supposed to do it. That's the problem. You were supposed to do it, Obnoxious, and you didn't do it.
Oh.
And now you're in trouble, and she knows your name.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
I'm in trouble with you. I don't even know why.
In the chat is wanting to list all the channels. But you're on your computer, so all you need to do is in the chat, just start typing their name, and it should pop up, and you can click on their name, and it should be a clickable. Oh, it's not a clickable link, though, if you do it that way.
You can click the three dots over to the right, and that'll take you to their channel.
Yeah, if you're on a computer, and, well, if not everybody on the panel is typing out in the chat, though, either.
Oh.
Like Squib's on his phone, so here's what we're going to do for now, and if you need to go back and rewatch this when you've got more time and look these channels up, then go ahead and just do that. But you can see everybody's avatar that kind of shows up when you're searching on YouTube. But we've got Travis P11, we've got Squib Load, Obnoxious One, which is spelled all caps OBNXS1, So go check everybody out. And then Kingpin, I believe on YouTube, your channel name is 2 words, right? Kingpin, you with us?
Yeah.
There you
Yep. Yes, sir.
So Kingpin, 2 words. That's David Bowling. And go ahead, and if you have anything you want to introduce, now is the time, sir.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'll say my hello and my goodbye at the same time because I got to roll out kind of soon. But thanks for having me, and everybody check out guntube.org.
Yes, go check out guntube.org. Absolutely. Okay, and then last but not least, we've got Gizzard Gary, and you can check out his channel as well. Gizzard is my neighbor to the south. He is probably the coolest Kansan that I know. And I know like 3, so you're right up there, dude. But what's up? Oh, we lost Gary again. I think he fell asleep. That's okay.
Gotta unmute the mic. There we go. Sitting here talking, it's like, what? Okay. Sorry about that. Check out my website, gizzardgary.com. It's got links to all my media outlets. Let's see. We have, I believe they call it, good Lord, Foul Territory on Friday nights. Forgot the name of my own chat, for crying out loud. It's called Foul Territory. It's on Friday nights, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. And then the early bird chat, Sunday morning open lobby, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Also, trying to get my channel up to 500 subs. We're at 497. So if you don't have anything better to do, please sub and give them the bird. Thanks for the invite.
You've gained some ground since last week, though. Weren't you quite a bit away yet last week?
Yeah, I gain ground, then I lose ground. So
yeah, that's kind of how it works.
Kind of like climbing a greasy flagpole, you know.
We need to get Gary over 500 subs tonight. So if you are listening to this and you have not yet gone and subscribed to Gizzard Gary, go and do that right now. Let's get him up over 500 and keep him up there. And then some of you, here's the problem: is sometimes with YouTube, you think you're subscribed to somebody, and then you find out that you're not. So go back through every so often and just watch some videos, because that's what will happen if you haven't watched somebody's channel or made a comment on a video or shared a video or thumbed up a video in a long time. Then YouTube will just take the liberty of unsubscribing you because they're so nice that way. And so just double check and make sure that you really are subscribed to everybody that you think you're subscribed to. And I did see out there somewhere in the chat that that Frankie had said chicken is good, and which is true, but the best chicken is Gizzard Gary, because Gary's made with 11 herbs and spices.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Colonel Secret recipe.
He's Kansas fried chicken. So
hey, also, if you have a spouse or significant other with a cell phone that's a smartphone, grab it, open up YouTube, and just sub them to all the gun channels so they have access to it. So that's what I do.
Absolutely. That works. And yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know how many of these channels that Sandhills Sweetheart is subscribed to.
You weren't supposed to say anything.
If you've got a cat, by all means, create an account for your cat.
Yes, exactly. Instagram.
And subscribe the cat also to Gizzard Gary.
And remember, science proves more cats and videos get you more views on YouTube. So
the reason I said that, Travis, is because she's already got her phone in her hand and she's doing it. So
heck yeah, man.
But it was a great idea there.
So we need a strike. We need Gizzard Gary to get up there.
Gizzard's at 499. We need one more.
Are you the one?
One more person. I'm hijacking the show until we get one more person for Gizzard.
Oh, she might have been 499. All right. So enough of this hijinks and tomfoolery. People that tuned in didn't tune in to hear us just talk about my wife getting on her phone. They tuned in to hear us talk about the Bill of Rights. So let's get into that. And I have got that pulled up because I embarrassed myself last week and I didn't have this web page up that's got all the amendments listed. And so tonight I can read to you myself what the Third Amendment says. And it's not one we talk about much. A lot of people, if you stop 10 people on the street, I would be surprised if even 5 of them know what the Third Amendment says. We all know the First and Second Amendments, of course. And some of the others, Fourth and Fifth, a few more people are aware of. But The Third Amendment says this: no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So what that means is if we are not at war, then you don't have to keep soldiers in your home. They can't come in and make you house them and feed them and everything else. That is not your job as a citizen to put the soldiers up. Now, in the time of war, all bets are off, but hopefully it never comes to that, and we don't have to deal with that on our soil because of folks like you and me. We're the biggest deterrent right now in invading forces. So, all right. So, what do you all think about Amendment number 3? Do we like this? Do we not like it? Do we ever think about it? If we weren't talking about it tonight, would you guys ever talk about this?
I don't think all bets are off when we're at war either, because the amendment says that they'd have to pass a law if we were at war in order to whatchamacallit, make you keep soldiers in your house.
Without your consent, yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, we could say, the patriotic thing would be if Maryland's getting invaded by the bad guy, then I should be able to open my house to the soldiers because they're going to defend me. But not everybody thinks that way, so you gotta keep the government in line.
Well, and it's if you want to offer them your home, that is absolutely fine. There's no law against that. It just says that the soldiers can't tell you you don't have a choice in the matter. They're moving in.
If I can explain something, there was some confusion during the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, and the territorial governor submitted that order, and people said the Puerto Rican National Guard is going to go door to door and confiscate guns, and that's not what the order said.
Yeah,
that is absolutely not what the order said. But because we get bad information in our community too, a lot of people just jump through. They misunderstood. There are emergency orders in place in the event of a natural disaster or a wartime or things like that the government can enact that allow the military to requisition necessary equipment. Necessary equipment isn't your bolt-action hunting rifle or your AR-15. Necessary equipment is the road is blocked and there's a backhoe across the street. We're going to requisition it. Necessary equipment is we're running LMTVs down the road and somehow or another the supply train didn't get caught up with us and there's some diesel over there. They have to pay whoever it is for using the equipment or consumable item, either the replacement value or whatever it is. If they borrow it, kind of like a rental fee. If they damage it, they have to repair it. If they use it up like fuel, they have to pay the fair market value, that sort of thing. That is a strategic thing for national defense and public security only. That is not we can just take over your house, we can take your guns, we can take your food. But there are people that actually believe that, and that is not the case. If they come to requisition something, they're probably going to be borrowing a piece of equipment or lumber or barricades or a generator or something like that. They're not coming in there to take your granola bars and your mountain house and your 6.5 Grendel that doesn't work in any of their guns or any of that garbage. So I just want to kind of explain that because it kind of falls in line with this amendment.
Yeah, I think it very much does.
Can we examine the last part of the language, though, the to be prescribed by law? Can you guys explain that with a little more clarity for me?
Well, that's precisely it. That emergency order that's in place, that is a law that says only in the event of an emergency, this can be enacted. This is not an average everyday thing. So after a hurricane, after an earthquake, after a fire, after the Yellowstone volcano explodes, right? After we get nuked by North Korea, yeah, right. Whatever it is, that's where this sort of thing falls into place. This is also where they can set up martial law. That is to try to keep order, that's to shoot looters, stuff like that. And I've been in a situation where after a hurricane, we had martial law and there was curfews and everything else. It was just for a few days. The power was out. They were trying to keep order. Things were flooded. It really wasn't a big deal. It really wasn't. But these are temporary orders. It's when they try to take something like this and turn it into a long-term thing, that's where you're really pushing the law.
Out in the chat, Blitz was asking, how would the Third Amendment be viewed concerning Katrina? I don't think it would, because I mean Katrina doesn't involve war or peacetime. That's a natural disaster. That's something different. But that's where Squib's talking about these other options that can happen, these other things that can go down. I don't think that the Third Amendment itself has any play in something like Katrina. But when there are bad things that happen, then I think that if there was looting, rioting, stuff like that, then yeah, that could be bad, and we could be looking into potentially going to martial law or something like that if it came to it. But
when there were the riots in LA in the early 90s, they deployed the Marines from Camp Pendleton because it was the nearest military installation with enough trained personnel and equipment to respond to LA. The California National Guard didn't have the manpower and weren't organized and weren't ready to handle that. They needed somebody who could deploy quickly, and Camp Pendleton was closer than Fort Irwin and had more people that were set up for this. And infantry really aren't meant to be a police force per se, but our military does enough peacekeeping overseas that we do know how to stand in front of a stop sign with an M16. And some people can go, this is just a prelude to the government taking over. No, this is all meant to be temporary. If it lasts too long, that's where you need to be concerned.
right. All right. Does anybody else have any comments or any questions regarding the Third Amendment? I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time mulling this one over. It's pretty well cut and dried. Other than that, manner to be prescribed by laws.
Have there ever been any lawsuits from this you guys have heard of? Any litigation for any type of time of war that this has happened? Like something, I mean, obviously it must have been domestic, but has this ever been abused in any kind of a stretch at all that anybody's ever heard of? In time of peace, maybe?
I don't think since this is.
I would say during the Civil War it was.
Yeah.
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 Very much could have been. Between other than the Revolution and the Civil War, we haven't had a lot of fighting on our own soil. So it hasn't come into play very often because of that right there. And so I think that the Civil War, I'm sure it did come into play. However, again, in the South, when they were in the process of secession, I mean, does the American Constitution apply to the Confederate States of America? I do believe not. So, if things like that happen in the South, they had their own what was it, Articles of Confederation that they were operating under at the time.
No, they had a Confederate Constitution, but what I'm saying is if you're going to invade another sovereign country and impose your will on it, especially to re-assimilate those people into the original country, then, kind of going against your own rules is kind of hypocritical. But that's another argument for another time. There have been issues. There's small reports here and there of things that happened during World War II with different people in the population from military that were stateside getting out of control and kind of taking the law in their own hands, but that really doesn't even apply to this. They weren't moving into people's homes or confiscating their private property per se. I mean, you could talk about the internment camps, but that really wasn't part of the Third Amendment. That was an executive order, and it was kind of a different issue.
Exactly. All right. Well, we will move on then. We'll go to the Fourth Amendment now, because this one we do talk about, especially lately, when we're discussing things like bump stock bans and confiscations and things like that. The Fourth Amendment gets brought up quite a bit. And some of those arguments are, I think, a little bit mistaken or couched in a mistaken philosophy, and some of them are right on too. So let's read this one. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So this says that the police can't just come in your house and look through your stuff or pull you over and go through your stuff. This also covers stop and frisk. It is unconstitutional to stop and frisk based on the fact that somebody is walking down the street breathing air. There's no probable cause. You can't detain them and go through their stuff. But when we start looking into red flag laws and things like that, this is one of the amendments that gets brought up that gets violated, either in the letter or in the spirit of the law by some of the proposed red flag legislations. Anybody have anything you want to jump in with?
I don't think anybody's going to disagree that it's necessarily a bad thing. When you talk about what was the deal with the president that we had that popped up? The what was it? The search
Patriot
first, ask questions later. What was the
take the guns first and do the due process later? Yeah. That's well, due process isn't mentioned in this amendment.
No.
That's the next one.
Shall we not?
But as far as if you get pulled over, the officer that pulls you over has to tell you you were speeding or you ran a stop sign or you violated some law, or they have another reason to stop you. There's an APB out on a car that's the same make, model, and color as yours or something like that. They have to have a reason to pull you over besides they want to see what's in the trunk. So if you're not acting suspicious and things like that, this is the amendment that protects your right to basically your own privacy. If you're leaving everybody alone, then you get left alone, is the way that I interpret this. Of course, as I've said before, I am not a constitutional scholar. But that's why we're going through this, because we want the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. These were all written in plain English, or what I think is pretty plain English. And so it's not hard to read it a couple times and determine what exactly this does mean. I don't think so.
So when we talk about the red flag laws, do they violate this amendment? I mean, do all the red flag laws and all the red flag law language you've seen, Sandhills, require a warrant before does it try to circumvent the warrant? Is that what we're seeing, the problem with the language in red flag laws, or not?
Not all of them.
Like Nebraska's that they had been discussing or debating.
Nebraska's 23 pages I have read through. It does not circumvent a warrant.
Yeah.
The problem that we have for this is the probable cause that is given in the case of a red flag law, especially in Nebraska. The probable cause that's given is this person has guns and we're worried that they might do something bad. Well, I don't see that as being, and again, we'll get more into this with the Fifth Amendment, but I don't see that we can take somebody's stuff away from them because they might commit a crime. If there's no evidence that you've planned a crime, if there's no evidence that you've tried to commit a crime or that you did commit the crime, then I don't understand where we can have a law that says the police can come to your door and say, well, we're worried that you might do something bad, so we're going to take your guns. Now we're going to leave your knives and your hammers and your chainsaws and ice picks.
Your vehicle.
Your vehicle, the fertilizer that you're going to put on your lawn. We're going to leave that here because we don't think that you can do anything bad with your ball bats or, a bowling pin or that golf trophy on the shelf. Those are not weapons, but your firearms, by golly, well, we don't want you shooting yourself. You can have your shoestrings, electrical cables, your belt. Those are okay.
David, I was kind of curious because your state was one of the first ones to really start enforcing this. Has there been anybody that's filed lawsuits against the state because of it, or do you know if there's a warrant clause in the Maryland red flag laws?
To touch on the warrant clause first.
Yeah.
Warrants are easy to get, and they don't really take all that long to get especially when you're talking about an emergency risk protection order.
Yeah.
Emergency is the first word. If a state's attorney or whatever goes to a judge and says, hey, John Smith over here is going to kill somebody. He's got guns. He's acting crazy. That warrant can come out super fast and with very little oversight.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Department of Justice or these law enforcement agencies have an app where it just puts out a request for the warrant in the situation, and there's a judge on standby that can just click a little pre-made form and tap it, and it just shoots the warrant right over their cell phone, and they got it.
Well,
but the issue is if the police go to a judge and say, hey, this person is suspected of this crime, we need a warrant to go search their house and see if they have drugs or plans or whatever, that's always been within the law.
But don't they need some sort of circumstantial evidence? Don't they need something in order to get the judge to?
No,
it can't just be as simple as.
No.
The red flag law, it can be anecdotal evidence.
So that's, I mean, it's more. I guess this is more of a Fifth Amendment thing, but it sure does sound Fourth Amendment-y.
It's in both, and that's why I wanted to cover the Fourth and the Fifth in the same night, because they do go together very well.
All your due process is written into the red flag laws. It's there. It's in the rules. It's in the legislation. The problem is the quote unquote loophole is also written in there by the emergency part.
Yes.
And, it says that it'll give you 14 days to review, and you can come and turn your guns in, and we'll teach you how to lock them up and where to bring them and all this kind of stuff. But then in the next sentence, it says we can show up at your house at 5 o'clock in the morning and take them.
Yeah.
And then what was your other point? What was your other question?
Just again, just with the warrant clause was the one question I had. And has anybody filed a lawsuit against the state because they said that it was that their property was taken from them, and it wasn't constitutional out there, that their property was seized improperly, or that the rights were infringed upon?
One of the most deceitful parts of the red flag law, especially the Maryland red flag law, is all of the documentation is sealed. And it even talks about, like, if you're the defense lawyer, you are going to have a very difficult time getting all the information you want unsealed. So for FOIA requests me to walk down to the courthouse and ask for these documents, I can't get them. There's not going to be any news reports and all any of that stuff about it. The case where the man was killed here in Maryland, the reason that made it out to the news is just by dumb luck. And the statement from his granddaughter and stuff like that, those just happened to slip out too fast because it happened so fast. But as far as any documentation, we don't have the right to those.
Well, and the worst part is, in the case that you're talking about, that's Gary Willis, right? Was his name? The guy in Maryland that actually was killed in the process, Gary Willis?
Gary M. Willis, yep.
Okay, so in the case of Mr. Willis, here's my take on what happened. Somebody went to the judge and said, and I don't know who it is, and it doesn't matter who it was, but somebody went to the judge and said, hey, this guy Gary Willis, we're kind of worried about him, and I think that you should take his guns away before he does something that could be bad. And the judge said, you're right, we should do this. So the judge signs that warrant or the order, whatever, the extreme risk protection order it's called, and then sends the police over to confiscate his guns, which they do super early in the morning. The guy's in bed. There's a knock on his door. He answers the door with a handgun in his hand because that's apparently what you do in that part of town. And so the police say, hey, we're here to take your guns. He's trying to get the cobwebs out of his head, I'm imagining, and he's half asleep. He's like, what? No, you're not. They push their way into the door. He's got a gun in his hand. They start to wrestle with him. In the process of him resisting the way that you would, because how does he even know for sure that these are honest cops? I don't know if he's even read any paperwork at that point. In the process, he's shot. Now, the only bad thing the guy's done is try and resist people forcing their way into his home and taking his guns away. He may or may not have done something bad, but he's dead now. We'll never know.
Well, I mean, this case is unique because there's actual details about it. And like I said, the reason that there's details about it is his niece talked to somebody. His sister is the one that called and said that he made some threats to her. The niece said that he was harmless, wouldn't hurt a fly. Now, those are just those, you take them for what they're worth. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we don't know. It's just what they said. And then the police report is available because, it made the news and everything like that. And the police said, well, first, has anybody ever had a cop knock on your door? If you've had a cop knock on your door, a cop doesn't knock on your door like your neighbor does when they want to borrow sugar. A cop pounds on your door as hard as they can, as loud as they can. And at 5 o'clock in the morning in that neighborhood, you don't want somebody pounding on your door. Not that it's a horrible neighborhood or anything, but it's not Beverly Hills either.
I have had an officer knock on my door.
Was it polite and kind, or did they pound on your door until you opened it?
I'm a very deep sleeper, but the dog's barking woke me up. I grabbed my GP 100 and I went, and all I could see was somebody shining their light at my house. So I didn't open the door until he walked back to his car and turned his light off, and I could see that it was a police car.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. This is 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mine was 3 in the morning.
And Mr. Willis answered the door with a gun in his hand. And the police report, the official police report, said when the cops started talking to him, he put the gun down. As soon as he saw it was cops, he sat the gun down. I'm assuming on like a little nightstand or whatever by the door. When the cops said, we're here to serve a red flag on you, is when he picked the gun back up. And then they started to wrestle over the gun. The gun went off. Official police report, the gun went off. He did not shoot at the cop. He did not fire a warning. So they're wrestling with the guy that has a Glock. So no safety. One in the chamber, and the gun went off. When the gun went off, the police officer that was in the wrestling match, I guess you would call it, his partner shot. And what, like it or not, I mean, I think it's terrible that it happened. But if I'm that guy's partner, and you're wrestling with somebody and a gun goes off, I can't let my partner lose that fight. I put on the uniform to say my partner's going to go see his wife tomorrow morning. I'm not going to let him get hurt. So, it is what it is, but ultimately it didn't have to happen regardless.
Well, and yeah, on that note, I'm not faulting the officers whose job it was to serve the protection order. They're following orders. To me, that's no different than soldiers following orders during wartime. They're following orders. The officers that are doing this, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They should have never been sent there in the first place. That's the beef I have with it. Not in that way. Not in that way anyway. The biggest issue I have, and I can't speak for every state, I can speak for the proposed legislation in my state. If they would take out 2 different things, if they would take out the ex parte part about the hearing, where you can have a hearing, you can go to court, the judge will hear the evidence, but you're not part of it and you don't have the right to face your accuser. That can be anonymous, by the way. Or you don't have the right to defend yourself and try and prove that there's no need to issue this order. If they would take that out of there, and then also if they would take out the part, because it says if the person is deemed to be a danger to themselves or others, if they take out the part about themselves, then maybe this starts to hold a little water, I guess, in my mind. As terrible as suicide is, I still don't know that I think it's our business to legislate it. If somebody wants to harm themselves, I think they have the right to do so. It goes back to the people that say stay out of my body are saying, hey, we're worried that you might be a danger to yourself or others, and we're going to take away your guns. And like I said before, all that goes away is the guns. I don't like that either. If they're going to take that person, lock them up, and put them in for a psych eval, then I'm okay with it. But again, when you're saying that this is an extreme risk protection order is to protect society and protect this person from themselves, and all you do is take out firearms, you've protected no one from anything.
You might have even started something, because maybe this guy was not planning anything, or this guy maybe, or gal, was, you know, a little bit on edge, but not over the edge. And this is the thing that pushed him over. I know that doesn't sound good either, but sometimes you can trigger something this way.
And the issue, another issue that I have is every time we think about this, the picture that I get in my mind, I won't speak for everybody, but the picture that most people, I think, get in their mind is, you know, some male who may be trying to hurt themselves or others. But what about the manipulative person? What about the manipulative male who thinks that his wife or girlfriend is about to leave him? He's already started planting seeds of she is dangerous, she's violent, something like that. And then she finally gets away from the guy. He goes to the judge and says, she bought a gun and she attacked me and did this, that, and the other. And so the judge says, you're right, we need to take this person's guns away. So now he has effectively disarmed her, and now he knows he can go to her house at any time, and she doesn't have a firearm to help defend herself. When she, again, the only reason she bought that gun was to protect herself from the guy that she was afraid of and trying to get away from in the first place. But there is the potential for that misuse of that law. Real quick, before we go too far, we lost David. He had to go, but he did say goodnight to everybody on the side chat here. So good night, David. Thanks for being here, Kingpin. So, but yeah, that's another thing that never gets brought up in the big discussions about red flag laws that I see on the news or, you know, the main media. Is this isn't just some guy getting his guns taken away. You know, somebody like the Las Vegas shooter being, you know, somebody saying, hey, you should take that guy's guns away. You know, but the problem that we run into is if we have a gun-hating judge, there is a potential for misuse on all these legislations. But we've kind of gone down a red flag rabbit hole, because once you guys get me started on red flags, I kind of get going. But back to illegal search and seizure. The police can't come to your house, and without a warrant, you don't have to let them in. The warrant has to say that they're looking for you or specific items in your home. Anything left to say on Amendment 4 before we dive into Amendment 5? And that's where more of this discussion is going to take place.
You know, all I'm going to say just with regards to the red flag laws is I'm surprised that there have not been more altercations with people that are very adamant about keeping their firearms, because they see a law like that almost as a form of tyranny. Because it's a disarmament clause that anybody can have your guns taken. I mean, you know, I'm surprised we haven't had more altercations where somebody goes live on YouTube and said, this is it. This is my statement against tyranny. Come and get it. And it lights it up. I really am surprised that it hasn't happened yet.
And typically from the red flag orders that we have seen served across the country, it's not like they're sending, you know, one deputy over to knock on your door and say, hey, sir, can I take your guns home with me, please? Or back to the station with me, please? This is usually a SWAT team or something similar to, I mean, these officers are, you know, they're loaded for bear. They're expecting a full-on firefight every time they serve one of these. They don't know what they're going into always. And so I don't know. It just seems like if a team of operators came to my door, like, I don't know what I would do. I would hopefully not fight back and get shot in the process, but I don't know what I would do. I don't want this to happen. I also don't like the list of people that they've put into the red flag law that can go to the judge. I think that the immediate family is pretty vague on, or not vague, but I mean pretty not immediate that they list in Nebraska. So,
Do you hear a lot about it in Nebraska? Because I don't hear much about it here. If they're doing,
well, we don't have the law yet. It's been proposed.
right.
It's a 23-page bill that's been introduced to the Senate, and I have not heard anything about it since it was introduced. I have read it. I printed it out. I even went through and hit a bunch of it with a highlighter. And one night, Clover and I actually were sitting on the phone, and he was reading the Nebraska bill, and we were looking at it together. We talked on the phone for about 3 hours one night, just about the Nebraska bill and the way it's drawn up. And I can understand. I know that this is the people that are proposing these. I think most of them, their hearts are in the right place. I think a lot of them don't take that extra step and think, well, what can be done to be misused with this bill? And sadly, the other people that don't think like that fully intend to have it misused. It's just the problem that I have with all of these red flag laws that I've ever read from any state. It's just another way to take guns away and nothing else. So that's where I say, don't pee on my head and tell me it's raining. Call it what it is. It's a gun seizure law. If they were going to take all of the ways away from people that they could hurt themselves, you can't. They're going to find something in a home. So in that case, you need to take them and lock them up and put them under observation. But we don't have that proposed in the law because that would violate unreasonable search and seizure, I think. I don't think you could get a warrant just to go lock somebody up before they commit a crime, because we don't minority report the crimes in this country that way. That's why we have this Constitution. We can't be locked up without a warrant, or without reasonable or probable cause. That's the whole reason we have this amendment saying that, hey, nobody can take your stuff away, or nobody can take your liberty away just because they feel like it. So that's where Amendment 4 comes in. Anything else anybody wants to add on Amendment 4? All right.
I'm good.
Moving right along. Look at that. We've gone less than an hour and covered 2 of them. All right. This one is probably going to take the rest of the evening because we've been talking about a lot of this already. So, Amendment 5, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, especially talking about recent events, red flag laws, bump stock bans, things like that. The last part we're going to start with. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. This is where sometimes when I hear people say about, the bump stock ban, the company in Texas that had 70,000 and they took them to be shredded. I have this. They're taking it. They're telling me I can't have it. I have to destroy it. They're not paying me for it. The Fifth Amendment doesn't say that. The Fifth Amendment to me says you can't have your stuff commandeered by the police, the military, the government for them to use it without them paying you for it.
This is like them condemning your land so they can put a freeway bypass through.
Eminent domain?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I read it too.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen where they've widened out a highway, made it from
Right.
2 lane.
Or even though it's your property, there's a right of way or an easement for utility companies or for somebody who needs to get through your property to get to their property on the other side. Or I lived in a city where the land between the sidewalk and the curb belonged to the city, but you had to mow it and you couldn't claim it as your property. And it's like, well, then why should I have to mow it? But so it probably falls into that sort of stuff too.
It's kind of like that, yeah. I mean, the example that you brought up with the highway, I've actually talked to somebody who had that happen where the state came through and basically bought X amount of land along the highway that was there between the highway and their house. They bought more than they needed actually, and then they sold it back for about half the price that they paid for it. So the landowner actually made money on the part that they got back, and they weren't upset about it really. They didn't lose a whole lot of, no one landowner lost that many acres, but the point is that they did get paid for that land. They didn't get the choice. There wasn't somebody that said, well, you can't put the highway to 4 lanes past my property. That's not an option. But then they were compensated for it at fair market value. And then again, it was what was not taken was sold back to them at less than market value. So that I think is what this clause is actually talking about. Not saying that the government comes along and says no more high capacity magazines. You have to turn them in or destroy them. They don't have to buy those back from you because they're not going to issue those out to the police. Unless they do issue them to the police, and then in which case they should buy them from you. But that's what that part says. So that's where a lot of the time when I hear people say, well, they can't just confiscate this stuff or just outlaw it. That violates my Fifth Amendment rights. No, that doesn't in that case. They're just saying that all of a sudden what was legal is now illegal. So don't get caught with it.
Right, but during Prohibition, they didn't even push that. If you owned alcohol the day Prohibition came into, you were not breaking the law. If you were a private citizen or a distributor, any of the alcohol you had on you at that time was still legal to own and consume. It was illegal to manufacture it. So they were more or less hoping that the supply would run out. And they didn't even attempt to say, nope, you got to go dump it all. You got to turn it in. You got to this, you got to that. And there was still plenty of booze on the shelf legally that was being sold and consumed the day after Prohibition went into effect. So it can be, things can be grandfathered in if it's just too big of a thing for the government to try to seize or push or record, or do they really want to fill up the jail with everybody who's got a mag that holds more than 10 rounds because they ain't got enough jail space? You know what I mean? So,
and that's what happened back with the assault weapon ban in what was it, 94? The firearms that were already in possession were grandfathered in, but there has not been a grandfather clause included in any of the proposed legislation that I've seen federally or in any of the states that are proposing it lately.
And that I think if they did that with more of these laws, they'd get more support. And I know some people go, no, that's not. I understand where you're going, but I'm just saying that if the people that want to take stuff from us, no matter what it is, whether it's booze or guns or the internet, if they put grandfathering in that, they're playing the smart game. They know they're going to get enough support because there's plenty of people that go, I got mine, so I don't care.
Right.
And they also know that law enforcement is going to support them because now they don't have to necessarily, go door to door and take all of your whatever it is that is getting banned this time. Or, I mean, there are, and even things like when they change the composition of motor oil or diesel or gasoline, it's got to be backwards compatible with older vehicles. But that older gasoline or oil or diesel doesn't have to work with newer vehicles, and that there are laws that are set up for that and standards and things like that. So there are certain ways the government can word things and make it work, or make it agreeable to more people, or just make it go over smoother. And then there are ways they can do it, and they're just going to get a lot of pushback.
Well, but I'm not entirely opposed to the laws not containing any grandfather language right now, because I think that is a catalyst for more people to get fired up and oppose it too. What do you guys think about that? As far as if we're not going to grandfather what's already in possession, like with the bump stocks, not enough people got fired up over bump stocks because, again, we had too many people that didn't care because they thought they were dumb and it didn't affect them. But if we start looking at outright ban of every semi-auto, now there's going to be a lot more people that get upset about this. And it's not just, I mean, if it's every semi-auto, then look how many handguns, rifles, and shotguns are affected with such a thing. So if there's no grandfather language written into that, then hopefully that is more of a call to action, I guess. And we can get a bigger pushback and actually stop those laws. You know, enough people can contact their lawmakers and say, if you vote for this, I'm not voting for you. I'll find a different candidate to support. So, and that's exactly what needs to happen. I think that if we as voters flexed our muscle enough, and enough of us did it, that we could remind Congress that they work for us, we don't work for them. They don't control us, they don't rule us, they represent us. But I've even had some people within our community that didn't necessarily agree with calling your congressperson and saying, hey, if you vote for this, don't plan on getting my vote. And I don't see the harm. If that's the way it's going to be anyway, then why not let them know? If enough of their constituents tell them what they want, then they are honor bound to represent their district, right, or their state. That's just my thoughts. But that is the just compensation clause there. So let's go back to the beginning here.
Hey, real quick, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that Texas company that's suing the government, the company that makes the bump stocks, because that could set a precedent where you have one, you know, they might have to have a situation where you can get compensation for it if you wish you want to turn it in.
Yep.
Which I'm completely opposed to. I think it's pointless and stupid and wrong, but I'm just saying, you know, it could set a precedent for future confiscations of firearm-related property.
Absolutely, it could. And yes, I wish those two gentlemen all the luck in the world with their case. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning here. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases basically in the military or the militia during wartime or public danger time. So basically what this says to me is if it's a capital crime, and that means one that correct me if I'm wrong, a capital crime is something where you're going to either lose your life or lose your freedom for life, right?
I don't know legal language worth the. I would guess that sounds about right. Yeah.
Should have found a lawyer to join us.
I thought you said Adam Kraut was going to be on tonight.
Yeah, I wish.
Why you got that lined up?
You want me to give him a call?
Yeah. Do you have him on speed dial somebody?
I forgot to ask for his card.
Doggone it. Yeah, I don't have him on.
Email him. Just see if he'll come on the show.
That would actually be kind of cool.
He probably would.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of different people on a lot of different podcasts, so yeah.
I would actually define any, whether it's Adam Kraut or even Colion Noir or any Second Amendment attorney. That would be really cool to have.
Yeah.
So, but okay, basically what this says is you're not going to be held for that crime unless you're indicted by a grand jury. And I don't know the process of the grand jury indictments all that well, but that's what that part says. So basically, they're not just going to say, hey, you murdered somebody and we're going to throw you in jail and never get you to a trial, which is a different amendment, but we'll get there too. And of course, we have exceptions for military personnel or militia personnel during wartime or public danger, i.e. Katrina, something like that. This next part, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. That's where we get the term double jeopardy. It's not just something that Alex Trebek talks about halfway through the show. So what does this mean? It means that if you've been tried for this crime and you have been either you've been convicted and you've served your sentence, or you were acquitted of that crime, you cannot be held again for that crime. If they find out later different evidence, but the jury already acquitted you, then they can't hold you for the same crime. They might find a different thing to prosecute you for, but not that one.
So we'll never know if OJ really was innocent.
Whether or not we ever find out, he's never going to be tried again for those murders.
See, so he could tell us then.
He could.
Yeah.
He really could. However, that doesn't protect him from civil suits and wrongful death and all that stuff, which, if I remember right, that wrongful death suit, he did lose that. But that wasn't the criminal trial.
Yep.
So all right. Anybody have any questions, comments on the double jeopardy part? It's pretty well cut and dried. If you didn't know what it said before, I mean, hopefully that just makes sense to you if you are hearing it for the first time. Now, the next part is where we most often hear, if you're watching any kind of TV show or movie with a courtroom case or interrogation by police or something like that, you'll hear somebody say, I plead the Fifth. I plead the Fifth Amendment. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights, or however they word it. It says, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. So they cannot put you on the witness stand, swear you in under oath, and then make you confess to something. Whether you did it or not, you do not have to say a word against yourself. Anyway. But that has, I know that there was reasoning when they drew this up. Now I can't even remember. I've actually remember reading about this once, why that was put in the Fifth Amendment.
The double jeopardy.
Well, not just the double jeopardy, but the testifying against yourself part.
Oh yeah.
You can't be forced to testify against yourself. Yeah. So right, self-incrimination. Yeah. The wording is to be a witness against yourself. So they can't put you on the witness stand under oath and make you say that you did this, whether you did or not.
So how can they accept the confession then, under the same guidelines?
Maybe confession
confessions
because
don't.
You're consenting yourself to give up that right. Maybe
if you sign a confession, that's not usually done in court. That's usually done at the police station. If the police present overwhelming evidence and they convince you, if you go to trial, that it's not going to take long to be convicted anyway, and maybe there's a plea bargain or something, then you can confess to it if you choose to. Or if they coerce you, trick you, there's things that they can and can't do, and on the TV shows they're always walking that fine line, right? But what they can't do is, in a criminal trial, and this doesn't say anything about civil cases, just criminal case, they cannot put you on the stand, swear you in, make you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and then ask you, did you kill this person? You don't have to answer that question. And that is where that's not where. But I'm trying to remember now where the burden of proof clause is. That's not in the first 10 amendments, is it? But that's also part of that. The burden of proof is not on the defense either. You don't have to prove you didn't do it. They have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you did. So
You did, yeah.
And part of that proof can't be forcing you to testify against yourself. So now, and here's the other part that we're getting into in the red flag laws. This is where the red flag laws, this clause right here, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That means that you can't lose your rights. You can't lose. They can't kill you. They can't lock you up. They can't take your stuff without due process. And due process to me does not mean I have never heard about this until the day that they come to take my stuff. That to me does not, I don't see any due process in that. There's process, but not the entire due process as described in the Constitution. And again, maybe we should just jump into Amendment 6 while we're here. Because this kind of goes together too. Amendment 6, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial, so they can't railroad you. It has to be a public trial. And they can't make you sit for years and years and years on end until you die before they try you. It has to be as soon as they can. By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have committed. So if you commit a crime in Illinois, they don't try you in California. Which district shall have been previously ascertained by law. So it's got to be like a state, county, whatever. And to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. They can't just put you in cuffs and lock you up without telling you why. That goes back to those Miranda rights. What was that? Miranda versus the state of Arizona, wasn't it? To be confronted with the witnesses against him. Amendment 6 says that you have the right to face your accuser. So an ex parte hearing that you're not part of, I don't see how that's constitutional at all. To have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. So that means that you can put your own witnesses on the stand, and to have assistant of counsel for his defense. So again, you have the right to an attorney. So 5 and 6, if we're going to talk about red flag. There we go. Let's just call them red flaws. That's what they are. Red flag laws. Amendments 4, 5, and 6 all have something to say about this process or lack of due process, in my mind.
I'll tell you, for Nebraska, that might be our argument right there. Violation of the amendments.
We need to everybody in Nebraska. I know there's a few Nebraskans out here in the chat watching. Find out who your state senator is, and make sure that they know how you feel about it. So yes, Joe Smith is right. They can detain you for 48 hours without telling you why, and that's it. I believe that is right. I'm no attorney, but I believe 48 hours is the longest they can hold you without charging you. After that, they have to either book you or let you go. I'm only saying that because I've seen that on several different cop shows. So, by the way, hi, Joe Smith. Thanks for being here. I know that you weren't sure if you were going to make it and last through the chat or not. So, glad to see you out there, Joe Smith. We all know he's the Rock, but don't tell him I said that. Okay, so Amendments 4, 5, and 6. We've kind of lumped them together here and gone through them. Some of this kind of quick, some of it not so quick. So, red flag laws or other. What comments do we have? Things anybody wants to add?
If these were, I will say one thing with the Founding Fathers, if these were inspired by the things that they didn't have and where their forefathers came from, what does that say about what life was like in those places before? We had a Bill of Rights, wow.
The king owned you.
Yeah.
You were basically property. That was the whole issue that they had.
And I couldn't even imagine living in a place where you wouldn't even have those basic rights that you just went through. I wouldn't want to live in a place like that. I don't understand why anybody would. They don't get it.
Well, and too many people, I think, take all these rights. Pick any right that we're guaranteed in our Constitution. Too many people take those for granted.
Yeah.
Too many people exercise their First Amendment rights to tell somebody, how they feel or whatever, and say, well, in this country, in that country, in Venezuela, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Denmark, in Sweden,
Denmark, yeah,
or Sweden, in Sweden they do this. That's great. In Canada, they do this. In England, if you put a meme on Facebook that people don't like, you can go to jail for a meme, because they do not have a constitution that guarantees their rights. They have no free speech in any other country in the world. No country has the rights that are guaranteed to us by our First Amendment. Not given to us, guaranteed us by our First Amendment. And I know we all, I think in our panel, we all realize that. But if you're listening to this and you are not aware of this, the Constitution does not give you any rights. The Constitution says, because you're an American citizen and you were born and you breathe air and you're a human, that you have rights and nobody can take those away. And the government is limited by the Constitution. That's what the Constitution does. It says, this is what the government does. This is what the government is not allowed to do. Go live your life.
And that's what a lot of people seem to forget, is that the Constitution was written to limit the government,
not the people.
Not the people.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And the Bill of Rights, specifically, the first 10 amendments here, were written to limit the government from overstepping and to keep it from getting too big for its britches. Again, there were some things that they left out in the original draft of the Constitution, and so they added these amendments to fill in all the gaps. And it's just like anything else when you go to do something and then you find out, oh, we didn't think about this. Let's write this in here too. That's what the first 10 amendments were.
And these are the ones that they felt it was so important that they needed to put it on paper.
Yes.
That the government did not have dominion over these.
Again, it means that we are a republic. We are governed by the people. We are, I don't want to say ruled, but that's what republic means, ruled by law. But the law is what determines what we can and cannot do, not any one person. It's not subject to the whim of a king or a queen, or
it's not subject to the will of the masses.
Not as such. Not true democracy. No,
you're right. Your rights are not subject to the will of the masses.
That's what the Constitution says. The Constitution says that you have rights no matter who says otherwise. You have them, and they can't be taken away. And anybody that takes them away is breaking the law. And then we can take their rights away for breaking that law. That's what it says. All right. Anything else anybody wants to throw out there? Amendments 3, 4, 5, or 6 that we covered tonight?
In regards to number 5, I don't answer questions, and I'm just traveling.
Okay. So don't ask you questions about Amendment 5. Got it. Anything else anybody wants to add in there? I have not been reading the chat that well since I've been doing a lot of talking, and I can't talk and read both, which is why my beautiful wife takes care of most of the chat. So,
part of it is, we don't have a lot of responses this evening on a lot of these amendments because they're just understood. They are fine as they are. That's why if there's ever any talk about eliminating any of these or modifying or changing them, that's just lunacy,
Well, and these amendments aren't debated week in and week out, night in and night out on the news or
Yeah.
live chats or whatever. It's the first two amendments that
Yeah.
get debated. Obviously, the Second Amendment is always probably always will be under debate, to be honest with you. But the First Amendment also, people are wanting to start taking that away. We covered that with the hate speech and things like that. But yeah, the rest of these aren't really hotly contested. Nobody is saying that the Fourth Amendment is antiquated and we need to get rid of it, because that would mean that we could stop and frisk, and nobody wants that.
Yep.
I don't even want that. I know it could stop a crime. If the police could just come in and do random checks and see what you have in your house, if you're building bombs, or if you have, a magazine that holds one more round than it's supposed to, or something like that. If they could just come in and check and see, then look how many crimes that we could maybe prevent in the first place. But that's not legal to do.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm not.
But if it saves one life.
But if it saves just one life. If we were really interested in saving lives, we would take away cars.
Mm-hmm.
We would take away cars. We would make the legal drinking age. 30. Obviously,
30.
That's not going to matter either. But and that's just the problem. Is we found out what prohibition does. It just makes outlaws. It doesn't actually take away anything. You can prohibit guns, but when you outlaw them, the old saying goes, when you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have them. So, and that's the biggest issue, getting away from the Bill of Rights here. Any proposed gun legislation I've ever seen does not do anything to take guns away from criminals. It only takes guns away from law-abiding citizens. The criminals still get to keep their stuff because they already don't follow laws.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yep.
Sandhills Sweetheart has a great question out there in the chat. It all sounds good that these rights are guaranteed, but some of them are already being infringed upon, and what can be done about it? Great question. Let's discuss that. What can be done about the infringements on our rights, whether it is 4, 5, and 6, or 2, or 1? What do we do? We don't like it. We're not going to put up with it. I'm not willing to load up my PMags and go to Washington because that's not the answer. What is the answer?
Again, your representative. Educate your representatives, educate your community, educate those groups you belong to, and explain why you think that this is an infringement. Bring up the constitutional language, point out the examples. Because if you say, look, this is why I feel this way, and make sure you yourself are educated on the issues too, so you can have a strong defense against somebody who wants to see some sort of a reduction in your guaranteed rights. You got to, again, be active. You need to, if there's some bill that's coming up that wants to restrict things, you best to notify your senator, whether they're on your side or not, why you think, that it is. In fact, call them, talk to them, debate with them. Maybe you can change their mind on it, make them realize, maybe this is a bad idea because this actually does go into an area that could lead litigation, and we don't want that in our state,
It doesn't take that long to send an email. It doesn't take that long to make a phone call. Very few of you are represented by more than 3 people in Congress. In fact, I don't think anybody's represented by more than 3 people in Congress, are they? 1 representative for your district and 2 senators for your state. You're represented by 1 person in your state Senate, 1 person in your state House, unless you're a Nebraskan, in which case just 1 person in your state Senate.
We make it easy.
You're looking at calling 4 people in Nebraska, 5 people in any other state. Call them, email them, write them a letter. They probably don't get a lot of handwritten letters, hand-addressed letters. Whatever you do, be respectful and tell them that you're not willing to see your rights infringed, but that doesn't mean to use any bad language. That doesn't mean to make any threats other than simply stating that if you don't want to do what your constituency wants you to do, then I'm not going to vote for you. That's not a threat of violence. That's just a threat of, that's part of the job, is not only getting enough votes to get into office, but getting enough votes to stay in office. So make them earn it. The people that want to get in, make them earn it. The people that want to stay there, make them earn it. Make them do what you want them to do. And that is where democratic process comes in. If enough of their constituents tell them that do this or I won't vote for you, they're going to listen because they need enough voters to keep them in place. And so, yeah. Educate yourself, like Travis said. I know a lot of people do this, but the one person that comes to mind right now is Representative Dan Crenshaw from Texas, the former Navy SEAL who literally gave his right eye for our country. And we thank Representative Crenshaw for his service, but the man carries a pocket constitution with him. He's got the Constitution with him wherever he goes. It's not a long document. It's not hard to understand. You can get a pocket constitution, carry it with you, sit down on your lunch break and read one article. It doesn't take that long to get through it. And again, it's written in language that we all can make sense of. That was the point. Everybody can understand our Constitution. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a legislator to get it. That was the whole point of it. They wanted everybody to know exactly how their government was supposed to work and how it wasn't. So same thing with your Bill of Rights. You can carry those along too. There are apps. I've got one on my phone. Instead of a pocket constitution on paper, it's an app on my phone, and I can go and click it and get to any article or any amendment with about 3 clicks. And so you can do that. But this only works if we all know what we're talking about here, or at least we have a general idea of what we're talking about. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I don't think I need to be to understand most of this, or all of it, but for sure most of it. All you have to do is just give it some thought. That's the biggest thing is, and I know you guys probably get tired of hearing me say this, but if you're listening to these or watching these chats, I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want to tell you what I think. And I want my panel to tell you what they think. And then I want you to take that information, go do your own research, do your own thought process, figure out what you think for yourself. And any political party, any political entity, any person who wants to tell you not to think for yourself, you got to ask yourself why. What are they after? What do they stand to gain if you just blindly follow instead of come up with your own ideas? And then find the people who want you to think, not the people who want you to follow, and hopefully align yourself with those people. So, all right. Do we have anything else that we want to mention from Amendments 3, 4, 5, or 6 tonight before we start signing off? Anyone? Bueller?
I believe he's 6, sir.
See, my cousin's sister's brother's aunt's nephew's niece. Yep.
I haven't seen that in way too long. I need to go back and watch Bueller again. Okay, well, let everybody sign off here. So we'll go backwards this time. Gary, you haven't said a whole lot because I know you've been holding it down out there in the chat too. So thank you for coming in and being one of my mods that I can trust to keep the chat clean and classy. But go ahead and say anything you want to say at this point.
Uh-oh, don't.
What was that?
He's worried. He's worried you're going to say anything you
I
want
was
to
like,
say.
say anything you want to say? I'm like,
Where do I start? No. Well, I did most of my sales pitch up front. So thanks everybody who subbed me. I'm at 506 subs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for inviting me to the chat. And I found out that I am way rusty from the government class I took back in high school some 42 years ago. So
Oh my
I need to
God,
study back up on this stuff.
bro.
Now
I
the
know.
Constitution hasn't changed since then. I just need to brush up on it.
Yes, but you have. So
I have, yes.
Yep,
I
yep,
have.
yep.
But
And
very
that's-
definitely interesting and stimulating discussion. It's a good thing to throw this stuff up and talk about it.
Well, and that's the whole point of going through the Bill of Rights, is because not everybody has thought about this since high school. Some people today aren't even thinking about this in high school. And so, again, the biggest downfall that I can see, and Travis, I'm not picking on you when I make generalizations.
No. We got to be really critical of those history classes, because that's where a lot of the wrongdoing takes place.
Well, and just in general, learning institutions, not just colleges either, but even high schools now and public schools in general. Too many schools are no longer teaching kids how to think.
Yeah.
They're teaching them what to think. This is dangerous. That's why I keep saying think for yourself. You need to know what you think. You need to know what you believe. And that's why we just want to give you food for thought, even when we don't always agree with each other. And that's why I love having people with different viewpoints that make me think about things that I've never considered before. Squib's always good at that. And so are a few other people that we get on the chat. So I love that, because I need to have my thoughts, my beliefs challenged. If they're never challenged, how do I know if I really believe them? So thank you, Gary, for being here. Congratulations on making it over that hump. And again, if you're listening to this and you have not gone and found Gizzard Gary, go and subscribe to him. And his next milestone is 600 now. So let's get to working on that for him. Go subscribe to Night Strike and get him up over that 1,000 mark too, because he's going to give away some free stuff. We all like free stuff. I could feel the burn there.
You get a build kit, you might just have to get yourself an AR there, John.
If I get a build kit for a lower, then I'm probably going to have to go upper shopping pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, Obnoxious One.
Yes, sir. Everybody check out my channel. It's Obnoxious One, OBNXS, the number one, because that's what I am, is the number one. You can also find me on, the Twitter and the Insta. Is that how the kids are doing it today, Travis?
Yep, it's the Insta. It's the Insta, and it's the Snap.
And the Snap. I'm not on the Snap.
Well, they don't allow firearms. They don't understand human beings, so you don't want to be with those people.
But I am on the Facebook. That's how the Facebook, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you can find me on all of those. Check out my channel. I released an alien gear.
I watched that video. I liked that video.
Gun Loving Grandpa says that he bought one because of that video. So he should actually go over there and make that comment on that video, and maybe Alienware will see that. You never know what could happen. But I've also got later this week, Thursday, I am going to be releasing a video from Fine Group, which did the Rex 01, and they've got a new one, the Rex Delta, which is coming out. So I did a video with them at NRAM as well. But other than that, thanks for having me. And I will mention one thing. I did see from Daily Shooter and I think Fit and Fire and the Wound Channel all got little notes from YouTube that they were demonetizing their channels.
Whoa!
Nice.
What?
So yeah.
But the entire channel.
The entire channel.
Okay, well, I'll probably be next. So yeah.
And Sarge has been 8 months now, and he hasn't been monetized. So I mean, he's coming up on hitting 2K, and he still hasn't been monetized.
He's got more than a view time.
Oh yeah, he's got plenty.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
If you do just a few weeks of a live show for even just an hour, it doesn't take long to get up to that view time.
No, I've got 310 subs as of tonight, and I've been doing live shows since February, like the beginning of February, and I've got 2K hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, if somebody's got 1,000 and they're doing a live show, they're well over that. But yeah, seeing that come across from the Daily Shooter, that was a little shocking.
So he posted a video on that. Did Fit and Fire post a video on that too?
Will posted. It is Will, right? The Daily Shooter. I think his name's Will.
Yeah, I believe so. The guy in California.
Yeah. He posted on Instagram. I saw it.
Oh my
God. Then I saw Guns and Gadgets had reposted it, and I just had something because I follow Such on Patreon, and he had posted about Fit and Fire and Wound Channel. So, yeah.
Yes, budget's out there in the chat. Welcome. Yep, they're talking about Daily Shooter and a few others. Yep. So, all right, let us move right along to Squib. Thanks for joining us again tonight, Squib.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're home, I can tell. All right. And then last but not least, my co-Nebraskan, everybody's favorite Spanish teacher, Senor Travis P11.
Muchas gracias, Chico. Yeah, I just make sure you guys check out my YouTube channel while I still have one. It's called Travis P11. And then also, guys, you can follow my podcast, Caliber Corner, on Thursdays from 5 to 7 Central, 6 to 8 East Coast time over on gunchannels.com. And it's just a little fun little podcast that we run through, a lot of firearm talk. And this week we'll be talking about the 1911 and my my midlife crisis, firearms crisis, to have this burning desire to pick one up, and it's just not going away. So
I do not imagine I'll be on that chat because I'll be working again. Okay. But I want to listen to that, so I will be
good one.
Catching that one on the. If I can't catch it live, I'll catch it on the replay. So
cool.
Thanks
man.
for being here.
Yep.
Okay, over on the gun channel side, I didn't see any, unless I need to refresh. I've even got the thing popped up too. I don't just look at the main page. But I didn't see any talk over there besides Gizzard saying he was first, and then I popped in and said I was second. But we did have Rupan in there, Gary's over there, Guitar Man Pete's over there. So thanks everybody for catching us on the gun channel side. And then on YouTube side, let's go to the list. We had, in no particular order, except for this is the order that I think they came in. Gun Loving Grandpa, Gizzard Gary, holding it down in the chat, and on gun channels, and in the panel. Seven Wonders, Guitar Man Pete, Rich Parth, Blitz, Keith Gregory, Rob D, Joe Smith was in the house. When he's not busy making Fast and Furious movies, he's talking about tools or guns on YouTube. Obnoxious One holding it down in the chat and on the panel, Blue Steel 44. Frankie was out in the chat. Mutiny for the Cat. Ghost was out there for a little while, and I didn't say hi, but thanks, Ghost, for being here. Poor Conservative. Mountaineer Marksman, I don't remember if I've seen you before. So if I have, then I'm sorry, but if I haven't, welcome. Squibload was out there and in here. Snob's Wife was out there. Pickle was out there for a while. So what's up, Calaveras? Kinky Sphincter. I just love saying that. That's great. Forklift Guy made an appearance. Vanessa Kitty was here. William Keller was here. Mike was in the house. Stephen Brown. Tim Foley was giving us some good bits about gunslingers there in Columbus, but they closed early on Saturday, and we were in town, and we went there, but they were locked up because we didn't get there in time. So I still have not been into gunslingers. Local 223, Boob Sweat Leads to Pearl Necklaces was in the house. Bishop Ammunition and Firearms. Sam of Anarchy 92, formerly known as Nightwolf. Vash Matrix, Budget Guns and Gear, 7 Kinky Wonders is out there. And of course, my lovely co-host just off of the camera, Sandhills Sweetheart, talking to everybody out in the chat and brightening up my life over here too. So, all right, we're going to call this a night. This has been 2A Tuesday number, what are we up to? 28 now. And we got through amendments 3, 4, 5, and 6 tonight. So probably next week we'll wrap this up, and we're not going to keep going after the first 10 because that is the Bill of Rights. Maybe sometime we can talk about specific amendments after that, but we're just going to go through the next 3 next week and then see what happens. So join us for the conclusion of the Bill of Rights chats next week, Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Central Time, which is the only time zone that matters because we're right in the middle of it all. And for everybody on the panel, we had Kingpin earlier and he had to jump out. For everybody out in gun channels, for everybody out in the YouTube chats, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your night. God bless you.